Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Alicia, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in April. So I had probably my best reading month in April. I don't know how I got through all of these books, and it's actually like April 23rd, I think, right, like today. So I still have a week left of April, but I read so many books I figured I'd just talk about them right now before I forget what happened in most of the books that I read. So let's get into it. So the first book that I read this month was Legendborn. This is a book that I was really excited to read and I absolutely loved. It was such a wonderful plot and idea because it had like the Arthurian legend influence behind it. So it took a really cool take on the Arthurian legends. And basically talked it had so many themes and ideas that were so relevant in society today, like Black Lives Matter and dealing with racism and discrimination. Just the fact that it has a female protagonist that's black as the main character, amazing. So absolutely loved it. I think I gave it four stars or 4.5 stars, only because I did feel it was a little too slow near the beginning. I do think a few things just kind of stretched a little, but other than that, I absolutely love this book. The next book that I read was More Than Just a Pretty Face. This book was a little iffy for me. So as a Muslim, this book had a lot of, well, it had a Muslim main character, and so because of that, it had a lot of obviously Muslim kind of representation, but I wasn't entirely happy with the Muslim representation. I do think it fell into a lot of kind of stereotypes and problems because of that. Just in the sense of I feel a lot of times the Muslim rep that you get in kind of books and movies and things ends up being in a way kind of one-dimensional. You either have the character who is, a rebel and kind of against the religion and trying to be this cool person living in the Western world, or you have this kind of very extremist view of what it means to be a Muslim. And so you don't really get the middle ground of just being a regular person, understanding the religion, but also trying to be a regular, just individual living in the Western world. A book like A Very Large Expanse of Sea, which I read earlier this year, was amazing in that regard, where you had a character who was Muslim, but also, just a regular girl. So I love that. This book, on the other hand, didn't love it as much because, again, there were some issues that I felt came up, because of that. I also think it is written by a Muslim author, so I can't say too much against it. Obviously, this is, let's say, maybe the author's experiences or how they feel, so obviously every experience is individual and everybody has their own kind of circumstances and experiences, so I completely understand that. I did love the romance. This is a contemporary novel, so it had a really cute romance and pretty, I would say it also dealt with some heavy topics, so in that regard I think it did a wonderful job. But I think I ended up giving this book 3 stars, maybe 2.5. But yeah, it was okay. The next book that I read was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And so this book, I think, was a really fun and quick read. It was kind of, I think, like Knives Out. I think a lot of people have said it's, similar to that. And it definitely was. It dealt with a young girl kind of coming to find out that she has inherited a bunch of money from this person that she doesn't really know, she's never heard of, and there's this whole mystery behind why she inherited all this money, and dealing with the family who were thinking they were going to inherit it all, and dealing with this conflict. So yeah, I think it was a pretty fun book. I don't think I really had any complaints. It was just it was, yeah, it wasn't anything super special, but I think I gave it maybe 4 stars. So yeah, definitely this one that if you're looking for a quick and fun read with a bit of a mystery, definitely check this one out. The next book that I read was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. So this is the second Tiffany D. Jackson book that I've read. I've read Grown, which I absolutely love, 5 out of 5 for that one. This one wasn't my favorite for sure. I think I gave it 3 stars. It just was, I think the mystery part of it was just a little confusing. I feel a little, some stuff just didn't add up. I also think, and this is just kind of the author's style, but she does this thing where she has maybe like part of the story happening in present day and then kind of flipping back and forth of like different timelines. And so I don't know, like she did this with Grown too, so I don't know what exactly it was with this book, but something just didn't like work for me with that. It was just a little confusing. But I do think, I mean, obviously Tiffany D. Jackson does such a wonderful job talking about these like really heavy issues. So in that regard, I think this book was phenomenal. I just think just some stuff with the writing didn't work for me. The next book that I read was A Thousand Nights. This book was a bit of a, I don't really know how to feel about this one, only because the writing style. I think this writing style was so kind of poetic and metaphorical, and so honestly I had to like, after reading a bit of it, I had to take a second and be like, wait a second, like what is this book talking about? Because I didn't really understand. And so that probably says more about me and like my, you know, dumbness. But I think the overall message, which I later found out was amazing. I think basically this book is dealing with, it's a Arabian Nights retelling, so it's dealing with honestly a pretty heavy issue as well, but the idea that, you know, a young girl is taken from her home and forced to be with this king, and you know how she deals with that and kind of saves her own life. And I just remember the biggest thing that I absolutely loved was the fact that none of the characters in this book were ever given a name, and most of the characters were women. It talked about kind of the main female character, her sister, her mothers, her like family and things like that, and the only character that was given a name was the king. And so it was, I think, in a way dealing with the idea of how women are voiceless and how they feel voiceless. But by the end of the book, you kind of see the strength and the just perseverance of this character and how she deals with this like really dark situation. And so I absolutely love that. I love the message. And again, like the writing style was beautiful. It just, again, didn't work for me just because I'm stupid. So nothing against the book. The next book that I read was The Hating Game. This was, I did not like it. I have to say I was not impressed. I was pretty bored. I think this is obviously a hate to love, or it's supposed to be a hate to love, and I did not think it was. I think a lot of the romance just happened way too soon, given that these characters are supposed to hate each other. So I didn't like that. But it was a fun read, I guess. It just wasn't good. The next book that I read was one of my absolute favorites, might even be just one of my favorites in 2021 in general. I think this book came out last year, but it was Transcendent Kingdom by Yaji Asi. This book was a literary fiction, adult novel. It was just so beautiful. The characters, the relationships, the message overall, it just really like fully immersed me into the story and into the character's life. And it dealt with a lot of topics such as like the kind of juxtaposition of science and religion, you know, family, grief, dealing with things like that. So just absolutely a beautiful book, and I obviously 5 out of 5 stars, highly recommend it. And I know Homegoing is her other novel that is super popular, so I haven't read that, but I definitely want to. The next book that I read was Lock Every Door. This book is a mystery novel, and I gave it 3 stars. I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. I think the mystery part, like the reveal of the mystery, was really cool and like totally unexpected. But I do think, again, this book just kind of dragged on. Like, I don't think, like, there was attempts of kind of character development and relationships and things like that, but I just wasn't feeling it until the very end, where we found out what was going on, which again I thought was super cool. But yeah, overall this book was just okay. The next book that I read was a new release of 2021, and that was Wings of Ebony by JL. This book kind of reminded me of Legendborn, I think, just because of the themes, and also had a feel of like, I want to say The Cruel Prince, although I haven't really read that. I started it and DNF'd it, but it was basically about a young girl who finds out that she is kind of part magical, and so she gets taken to this like magical land to like by her father because she is like a part of that world. It also, her mother had recently died, and so that aspect was also kind of reminiscent of Legendborn and dealing with grief and things like that. I did feel that this book was like did such a wonderful job of talking about very like topical issues such as racism and discrimination and the Black experience. I do feel that like the fantasy aspect maybe wasn't all that great. Like I think it had a cool kind of idea, the magical part of it, but it just kind of, it didn't really do a good job of kind of immersing you in the world. I honestly don't think the world building was good. Like there wasn't really much of it. And yeah, so I think that side of things wasn't really like, if you were looking for like a, you know, fantasy heavy read, something like that, just this book would not work, I feel. But I love the character, I love the message of the story. I think I ended up giving this book a 3 stars, but yeah, there was just a few things on the kind of plot side of the fantasy aspect that I didn't love. The next book that I read was Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. This book is probably the smallest book that I've read. This is, I believe, a novella, so makes sense, but I've heard so many great things about this book, so I was pretty hyped about it, and I had pretty high expectations, and they did not live up to them, or the book didn't live up to them. Only because I don't know like what it is about it. I do love the kind of idea of like portals and different worlds and that stuff. I think probably just because it's so short, I wasn't able to ever fully like relate to the characters or care about them or understand the kind of world and that aspect of things. I think if this was actually like a full-on novel and like had a lot more kind of pages to fully develop the characters and the relationships and the world, that would have been a lot better. I think I gave the book 3 stars as well. And yeah, like I don't really have much to say about it. So the next book that I read was another favorite. I absolutely love this book, and that was The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. This is probably one of the first or one of the only like historical fictions that I have read, and I don't know if it's just Kristen Hanna's writing or actual historical fiction, but I absolutely love this book. This book was so heartbreaking, so emotional, but also so hopeful, and the writing was exquisite. It was just beautiful, and so I have nothing bad to say about this book actually. And yeah, so this book actually takes place starts in the 1920s, but actually deals with the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl in Southern America, and it also deals a lot with like family and motherhood. It deals with kind of like, I want to say like rebellions and like standing up against you know, against the state and things like that. And yeah, it just was such a beautiful read. I highly recommend it. I haven't read The Nightingale yet. Oh my god, that's my Alexa. Thanks. Anyways, I haven't read The Nightingale yet, but I really want to get to that, and I just absolutely love Kristen Hanna now. And the last book I read was Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. This is the sequel to Hank Green's debut novel, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. I talked about this in another video, and I absolutely love this book. This was such an amazing read, not only from like, you know, a character standpoint, like the plot was so cool, so fascinating, the themes are amazing, just everything about this book was so good. And if you're trying to like find a book that you really just want to fall in love with, I highly recommend this series. Probably one of my favorite series of all time now. So those are all the books that I read this month. Again, I'm not even done with this month, but I have read so many books that I wanted to just talk about them. But hope you guys liked this video, and thanks for coming. See you next time.